Welcome back, everyone, to another reaction video. Well, we are digging way back into the archives of Sam O'Nella Academy today. We're going back to a video he did from 5 years ago. It's called Obscure, Obsolete Inventions. I was looking for something a little lighthearted, something a little different today. I think that fits the bill. Before we dive into today's video, as always, the link is in the description so you can check it out without my commentary. Should mention, for those of you who are concerned with such things, Sam O'Nella is definitely one of those channels I would classify as not family friendly. So if that's important to you, consider yourself forewarned. Also, I want to let you know that over on Stories of the Great War, which is one of my original content channels, I've got a new video up today from my recent visit to Belgium, where I visited a place called Railway Dugouts Cemetery. And I was able to take with me the medal for a soldier from the Seaforth Highlanders that I have in my collection. I was able to go and visit his grave and tell a little bit of his story, as well as a bunch of other really important stories of the men who fell in the area around Hill 60 on the Ypres salient. So please check that out if you would. The link is in the description of every video to all of my other channels, so check those out. Let's go ahead and dive into this one.
Alright, after months upon months of unrelenting pressure by you psychopaths pretending to be my characters on Twitter, I finally got a merch store. Let this be a lesson, kids. With enough harassment, you can achieve anything. Anyway, go check it out, or don't, whatever.
Okay, so that actually makes me think of something I should mention. And we all have weird quirks of our personality and things that probably don't bother most people but bother us. And one of those things for me is when you mention how many times you've requested something. So just a friendly reminder that if you say 5th day of requesting such and such, 14th time requesting, that actually makes it less likely that I'll do it. So just be forewarned, be given that knowledge now that I love getting requests, and I encourage you to request reactions in the comment section. But when you tell me I've asked for this 15 days in a row, that means I'm probably just going to ignore you, just so you know.
Hey kids, if I learned anything from my middle school career, it's that what may seem like a good idea initially will often be remembered only as a foolish mistake. Here's a few pieces of technology from yesteryear that have since fallen into total obscurity. So
that's really interesting that he's showing. So I want to pause on that, because when I first had my very first computer, it was a Commodore 64, and it had like the 5-inch floppy disks. They were like this big. And those things held like what, 1.4 megabytes of information? Megabytes, 1 megabyte. And then you have these, the 3.5-inch floppy disks. And we were going through stuff at the house I grew up in, which has been sold to new owners. So we were kind of going through the last of the stuff that was left behind there by my grandparents when they passed. And there were a bunch of those discs, and we were like, what do we do with these? They're probably, we don't even really have access to a way to read the information on these. That's how much things have changed. And we went from those to CDs that I think could hold 600 megabytes, and then we went to DVDs, which could hold several gigabytes, and now we've got terabyte external hard drives that we can carry around in our pocket. It's crazy how quickly technology moves.
Pieces of technology from yesteryear that have since fallen into total obscurity. So I've always believed that there's no point in having many small things when you can have one big thing. Why have many shrimp when you can have one lobster? Why drink many glasses of milk when you can eat one udder? Why have many cheese
when you can eat one udder? That was horrifying.
It's when you can have one cheese them, patent pending. And why have many street lights when you can have one Moonlight tower? These guys were real popular back in the 1880s and 90s, often standing at over 150 feet tall and illuminating several blocks from a single point. Not very well, mind you. Matter of fact, they were so dim, we didn't even have the conscience to just call them light towers. Had to go and stick the moon on the front so people didn't get their hopes up. But thanks to our good old friend, the inverse square law, you still needed a fuck ton of light to pull this off. So they used incredibly harsh and UV emitting arc lights instead of incandescent bulbs. All the light of the moon and all the vision damage of the sun? Talk about a win-win. Sadly, these beasts have fallen by the wayside over the past century or so, except for in Austin apparently, but they use friendlier mercury vapor lamps in them.
So this is what's fascinating about this is, even though obviously the technology isn't there anymore, but street lights are still a thing, and a lot of those they come on when you get to a certain level of darkness. They kind of automatically come on. And for those like Gen X kids like myself growing up, when obviously we didn't have the internet and things like that, so we spent most of our evenings outside playing, especially in the summer, you knew that when those lights kicked on, that was kind of your cue to head home from whatever neighborhood kid's backyard you were playing in. So there's some nostalgia there for me. But yeah, what's fascinating about this whole concept of obscure inventions is that at some point in history, it was a good idea to someone. And even though it might seem ridiculous in hindsight, it made sense to somebody at that time.
So they only get half points. Now, anyone who's been around a baby long enough knows they always have a cloud of ghoulish stench hovering around them. Jeez Louise, somebody better air out that musty little muskrat before Grandma starts drooping again. You could stick him on the clothesline for a while, but knowing that little moron, I'm sure he'd find a way to hurt himself
I wonder if he's going with the cages outside of windows in New York City with this one.
somehow. Introducing the baby cage.
Yep.
Finally.
Oh yeah, I'm real familiar with these. This is crazy to me, but again, made sense at the time.
Dwellers all across the nation have a way of unleashing their postnatal funk on the unsuspecting passerby below. These were in vogue for a while before falling out of style a bit of the way into the 20th century, because apparently society started deeming babies more valuable than air conditioners. I don't really get it personally, but this is also around the time we started putting lead in gasoline, so it's probably for the best we kept them inside all day. Matter of fact, it's my firm belief that without kids growing up breathing lead, there's no way pet rocks would have taken off.
I'm curious to know if there were ever any incidents of one of these falling and actually killing a child. I'm not aware of any. If you are, let me know in the comments section.
The 70s. Wow, alienating baby boomers. He's so brave and controversial. Now, in the days between the Great War and the not as great but still pretty alright war, people were trying to find efficient means
World War I and World War II. I've never heard it described that way, but I like it.
of detecting an incoming air attack. They climbed their nation's tallest mountains to seek
He's totally going to go with those big giant like things that they would put up to their ears.
the wisdom of their greatest elders. And the wise men said, big ears. So that's what they did.
Yep.
These giant discs were known as acoustic mirrors and were designed to focus incoming sound over a 5-meter diameter into a single point. They were reasonably effective as listening devices. A few of them in Britain were able to pick up the sound of a plane from all the way across the English Channel. Of course, radar came along soon after, rendering these things completely useless beyond looking brutalist as hell. For real, instant album cover material right here.
So actually, that wasn't what I was thinking of. I was thinking of, they actually look like, if you've ever seen like a megaphone, they look like a reverse megaphone where it was a big giant cone, and then they would actually put their ear up to those, and they had those. Because people don't realize that the Germans were actually flying not only bombers, but also airships, the dirigibles, the Hindenburg, like that. Flying those across the channel, and they were dropping bombs on British cities during the First World War.
One of the Pep Boys is pulling a Spanish Inquisition on this poor wayward harlot. Just kidding. Despite the fact that this looks so very, very much like a state-of-the-art instrument of torture,
this a lobotomy?
It's actually just a beauty micrometer.
Oh,
Think those shoe size measure things at Foot Locker, only instead of one primitive measurement, it records the entire topology of your face and skull at once. With this
Wait, let me go back and read those.
one primitive measurement, it records
Forehead frinkliness, resting face. Okay, I won't read that. General dumpiness index. Again, seems crazy, but a lot of science at one time had some crazy elements to it. And there was a whole thing known as phrenology, too. It was a science of reading the bumps on someone's head. And they thought that they could determine things about a person based on the shape and the irregularities in their skull.
the entire topology of your face and skull at once. With this data, a trained cosmetologist would be able to pinpoint exactly what features of your head should be enhanced and reduced with makeup in order to achieve a maximum calculated attractiveness after you've paid for their services. Clearly this device must have been effective.
And what happens if you are calculated as not being attractive? Was this meant to spur you to get plastic surgery, which wasn't as much of a thing then than it is now?
After all, beauty is entirely objective. What, eye of the beholder? Check the name tag, buddy. Apparently, though, women didn't like being strapped into a birdcage and having their every minute flaw meticulously laid out in front of them.
Can't imagine why.
So this thing never really took off in the end. Next,
this actually leads me to a complete kind of aside here. And this has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about. It kind of does, maybe, because we're talking about history and we're talking about beauty and things like that. So first of all, I recognize that the audience for this channel, first of all, is like 93% male. It's about 7% female based on the demographics that I have. And that seems to be true for a lot of history channels. But I know also that we have a lot of women who are fans of this channel. And one thing I wish we had more of are women on YouTube creating history content. There are a few, and there are some who do a fantastic job with it. But in talking to some of them who have become friends of mine, one of the things that I find out is that something like a third to a half of the comments that they get on their channels are about their appearance and not on the content. Now, I get comments about my appearance. People love to talk about my haircut and my facial hair and the inability to grow a beard that I have and things like that. And that's fine. It doesn't bother me. But when you're trying to be taken seriously in a field like history and half the people's comments are about your appearance instead of your content, that's got to be incredibly frustrating, and it probably drives a lot of women away from making history content who otherwise might, and we would all benefit from their presence on this platform. So I just want to say, if you're a woman and you are interested in history and thinking about doing it, do it, and then just tell those people to shut up or just block them if all they want to talk about is your appearance. Give us the content. We want to see it.
Next we have the Huml. This was a device made during World War II designed to let infantry shoot around corners. It's like the Germans sat down and watched that part in Tom and Jerry where the conniving rat bends the gun barrel back at his adversary. They said, "Mein Gott." They came in a variety of angles between 30 and 90 degrees, and it even came with a little periscope. So you
and the problem is you fired it a couple times and then it was worthless.
See what you were shooting at. But as we all come to find out when we reach adolescence, cartoons are the arbiters of deceit, because these things would invariably break within the first couple hundred shots or so. And even when they did work, the rounds would fucking explode from the massive acceleration, turning a deadly bullet into an ineffectual spray of shrapnel. These were so ineffective that only the 30-degree model ever saw significant production beyond prototypes, and even that was very limited. Say, you ever look at regular mousetraps and go, not enough property damage? Well, check this out. Patented in 1882, it's the revolver mousetrap.
What?
Brought to you.
What? Some of you have heard my story. When I lived in Pennsylvania, when my wife and I first got married, we lived right next to a farm, and we would get rats. Not mice, we would get rats in our house. And you haven't lived until you're sitting in your living room watching TV, and you see a rat run across the kitchen floor. A rat. Insane. So I started putting out rat traps in the basement, but then the rats wouldn't go to the traps. And so I figured out where they were coming into our upstairs, and I would set glue traps because they would run across those and get caught. And that's when we discovered that rats scream. We're in bed upstairs, and I hear screaming in the kitchen, and it's one of these rats that's caught in one of these traps. Then I had to take it out onto the deck and beat it with a shovel, which was a traumatizing experience for me because I don't like to kill animals. I just have always been that way. A revolver. Wow.
By the makers of the Snail Trebuchet and the Cockroach Claymore.
This might be one of my favorite videos he's ever done. The comedy is on point with this one.
Thanks to the marvels of the modern era, all those tiresome hours of intense varmint slang can be outsourced to one little gadget on the floor of your kid's playroom. Now when you hear a gunshot in the middle of the night, you can rest easy knowing that, one way or the other, there's one less pest for you to deal with in the morning. Boom. 1850. Steam locomotives are all the rage. You're in the transport business, but all you can afford is a couple dumb horses. Sure, they move things from point A to point B almost as well at a fraction of the cost, but your cool rail-riding friends called you a whack-ass and it really hurt your feelers. Well, if we got the invention for you. The Impulsor uses an ingenious system of treadmills to turn that horse to be beckoned into a force to be reckoned.
That's legit horsepower right there.
With.
What?
Sure, it's expensive as hell to make and limits your services entirely to railroads, but just look at it. Instant pussymobile. Slap some rims and a spoiler on that, you're laughing. This machine is recorded at having a maximum output of 2 to 4 horsepower, which sounds about right, and it didn't see much use outside a couple exhibitions. Now, if there's one hobby that people in the...
That, to me, even for its time, seems like a dumb invention.
past enjoyed, it's smoking. Whoo boy did they like smoking. And with every great wholesome activity comes a million novelty items to go along with it. Everyone's seen the long cigarette, but how about the really long cigarette?
What?
Want to smoke in the rain? Here you go. Going snorkeling? Hey, you know what's more important than oxygen? Nicotine. But hey, want to know the only thing better than a cigarette? 2 cigarettes. You know what? Fuck it. Have the whole pack. You earned it. Of course, if you're trying to cut back, you can always share it with a friend. Aw, how heartburning. But you know what's even more fun than addiction? High quality documentaries. That's why you should check out Curiosity Stream.
I don't even know what to think about that last one with the cigarettes. That seems insane to me. The last two kind of crazy. The other ones before that seemed like they made sense. Well, okay, maybe not the gun mouse trap thing. Okay, some of those were just crazy. Okay, that leaves me with the question then. What do you think is an invention that at the time maybe seemed like a good idea, or maybe it didn't, but just seems absolutely ridiculous now in hindsight? Let me know in the comment section below. Definitely check out Stories of the Great War. Also, if you're into gaming, check out the latest videos on the gaming channel. I'm playing through Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts right now. So, and had a ball last night playing Risk with Mr. Terry and Emperor Tiger Star. I did win both matches, and we're going to be doing more streams like that where we're streaming to multiple channels at the same time, playing games, doing Q&A. Seems like everybody had a blast doing it, so we're definitely going to do more of it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.